You are not losing your place in the world. You are outgrowing the version of yourself that once needed to belong there. The people, places, habits, and conversations that once felt normal now feel strangely empty because something deeper inside you has awakened. Have you recently felt distant from people you used to understand completely? Have you felt uncomfortable in homes where you once felt accepted? That discomfort is not rejection, it is a signal. Your inner life is moving forward, even if your outer life has not caught up yet. If this message feels like it is describing your life, pause for a moment and write this in the comments. I am not lost, I am becoming. Sometimes the truth becomes stronger when you finally speak it. There comes a moment when the world you once called home begins to feel strangely unfamiliar. The same people are there, the same conversations happen, the same places remain unchanged, yet something inside you no longer responds the way it once did. This is not because the world suddenly became smaller, it is because you became larger inwardly. Your old world was built around an earlier version of you, the version that needed approval, feared rejection, accepted less, stayed silent, laughed at things that did not truly amuse you, and tolerated situations simply because they felt familiar. That old version of you learned how to survive in that environment. It learned which parts to hide, which emotions to swallow, which dreams to delay, and which truths to avoid. So naturally, the people around you became used to that version. They knew how to reach you, define you, influence you, and predict you. But when your inner life begins to change, the old pattern starts breaking. You no longer want to perform the same personality just to keep peace. You no longer want to shrink your thoughts so others feel comfortable. You no longer want to pretend that shallow conversations are enough when your soul is asking for depth. This is why your old world feels tight now. It was never designed for the person you are becoming. It was designed for the person who had not yet discovered their own worth, their own voice, and their own inner direction. The soul rejects what the ego once needed because growth changes the source of your hunger. At one stage, you may have needed attention to feel valuable. You may have needed someone's reply, someone's approval, someone's praise, or someone's presence just to feel steady within yourself. The ego survives by attaching itself to outer signals. It asks, do they like me? Do they notice me? Do they still choose me? Do I still matter here? And for a time, these questions may control your entire emotional world. But when something deeper awakens, those old needs begin to lose their power. You may still care, but you no longer want to beg. You may still love, but you no longer want to abandon yourself for closeness. You may still enjoy being seen, but you no longer want to become false just to be accepted. This is the quiet rebellion of the soul. It does not shout. It simply stops feeding on what once kept the ego alive. That is why certain people no longer impress you. Certain compliments feel empty. Certain rooms feel noisy but meaningless. Certain achievements look successful from the outside, yet feel hollow within. The outer world may still offer the same rewards, but your inner self is asking for something cleaner, deeper, and more honest. This shift can confuse you because the things you once chased may now feel strangely heavy, but nothing is wrong with you. Your center is moving. You are no longer being led by the need to prove yourself. You are being called toward the truth of yourself. Discomfort is often the first sign that something within you has started to expand beyond the life you were trying to maintain. People think growth should feel peaceful, beautiful, and clear, but real inner change often begins as irritation. You feel restless without knowing why. You sit with people you once enjoyed, yet your mind drifts away. You listen to the same conversations, but they no longer reach you. You try to return to old habits, old places, old routines, but something inside quietly refuses to settle there again. This discomfort is not random. It is a pressure of a deeper self pushing against the walls of an old identity. For a long time, you may have lived inside patterns that felt normal because they were familiar. You accepted certain behavior, ignored certain truths, repeated certain choices, and called it life. But once awareness begins, the familiar can start feeling unbearable. Not because everything around you is wrong, but because you can no longer betray what is becoming true inside you. This is where many people make the mistake of running back to the old world just to feel safe. They mistake discomfort for danger. But sometimes discomfort is not a warning to go back. It is a sign that your old emotional clothing no longer fits. You are stretching beyond your former limits, and stretching always feels uncomfortable before it feels natural. So when life feels strange, when silence feels louder, when your old self feels distant, do not panic. Something within you is making room for a wider, truer life. You begin seeing through old illusions when your inner awareness becomes stronger than your need to belong. Before this awakening, you may have accepted many things as normal simply because they were familiar. You may have called emotional distance peace. You may have called disrespect joking. You may have called manipulation care. You may have called your own silence maturity when deep down it was fear wearing a calm face. But once your perception changes, the same situations reveal a different truth. You start noticing the hidden motives behind certain words. You feel the weight behind fake smiles. You sense when someone only values the version of you that is easy to use, easy to predict, or easy to control. You begin to recognize conversations that drain you, relationships that keep you small, and environments where your spirit had to lower itself just to remain accepted. This is one of the most painful stages of growth because awareness does not politely ask permission. It arrives and suddenly you cannot unsee what you have seen. The old world may still look the same from the outside, but inside you, its spell has been broken. What once felt comforting now feels false. What once felt exciting now feels empty. What once felt like loyalty now looks like dependence. And this is why you cannot go back completely. The mind may remember the comfort, but the deeper self remembers the cost. You are no longer willing to trade truth for belonging or awareness for temporary peace. Loneliness becomes a sacred passage when life begins removing the noise that kept you away from yourself. At first, it can feel like abandonment. People stop calling, conversations become shorter, invitations disappear. The places where you once felt included now feel distant, as if you are watching your old life from behind glass. This stage can hurt deeply because the human heart naturally wants connection. It wants warmth, recognition, and a sense of belonging. But not every form of belonging is healthy. Sometimes you belonged because you were useful. Sometimes you belonged because you stayed quiet. Sometimes you belonged because you never challenged the pattern. Sometimes you belonged because you kept playing the role others assigned to you. When you begin to change, that false belonging begins to fall away. The silence that follows may feel cruel, but it is often protective. In that loneliness, you start hearing the parts of yourself that were buried under other people's expectations. You begin asking what you truly want, what you truly feel, what you can no longer tolerate, and what kind of life actually reflects your inner truth. This is not ordinary loneliness. It is a clearing. It is life creating space around you so that your new self can breathe. Many people fear this stage and rush back to old connections just to avoid the emptiness. But the emptiness is not there to destroy you. It is there to separate what was real from what was only familiar, so you can stop confusing company with connection. The people who misunderstand you are not always your enemies. Sometimes they are simply meeting the new version of you with the old map they still carry in their minds. They remember who you used to be. They remember the version that answered quickly, agreed easily, stayed available, explained everything, tolerated too much, and softened the truth to avoid tension. So when you begin to stand differently, speak less, choose carefully, and protect your peace, they may not understand it as growth. They may experience it as rejection. This is where you must be careful. Not every confused person is against you, but not every confused person deserves access to you either. Some will genuinely need time to adjust. They may feel surprised because your boundaries are new. They may miss your old softness because they were used to it. But others will resist your growth because your old self benefited them. They preferred you uncertain. They preferred you apologetic. They preferred you easy to pull back into the same emotional pattern. When they call you changed, listen closely. Sometimes it is an accusation. Sometimes it is evidence that you are healing. Growth often looks cold to people who only knew you through your self-abandonment. Peace can look like distance to people who are used to your overgiving. You do not have to hate them. You do not have to prove yourself to them. You only have to remain honest about what your spirit can no longer carry. Their misunderstanding may hurt, but it cannot become the reason you return to a smaller version of yourself. Your new world requires a new level of honesty, because you cannot step into a deeper life while still protecting the same old lies. For a long time, you may have told yourself certain things just to survive. You told yourself you were fine when you were tired. You told yourself it did not hurt when it did. You told yourself you could keep waiting, keep accepting, keep explaining, keep forgiving, even when something inside you was quietly breaking. But growth has a way of making dishonesty unbearable. Suddenly, the excuses no longer work. The old reasons sound weak. The old compromises feel heavy. You can no longer pretend that a place gives you peace when it only gives you familiarity. You can no longer call a connection love when it constantly asks you to abandon yourself. You can no longer call your silence wisdom when it is actually fear of being disliked. This is why the new world feels demanding. It does not let you hide behind old roles. It asks you to name what you feel, choose what is right, leave what is false, and stop negotiating with what repeatedly wounds your spirit. Honesty becomes the doorway, but it is not always gentle. It may cost you approval. It may disappoint people. It may force you to rebuild parts of your life that were standing on comfort instead of truth. But this honesty is not punishment. It is freedom with sharper edges. It removes the mask, the performance, the emotional pretending, and the quiet self-betrayal, until the life around you begins to match the truth within you. Not fitting in is often the beginning of coming home to yourself, because the old world usually accepts the version of you that is easiest to recognize, not the version that is most alive. It accepts the mask, the habit, the predictable reactions, the familiar role. It knows how to deal with the person who stayed quiet, gave too much, avoided conflict, chased approval, and carried pain with a smile. But when you begin returning to your real self, that old world starts losing access to you. This return does not always feel beautiful at first. It can feel confusing, lonely, even frightening. You may wonder why you no longer enjoy what once entertained you. You may question why certain people drain you now. You may feel guilty for wanting distance from places that once gave you comfort. But this is what happens when the deeper self begins rising. It refuses to keep living inside rooms where it has to shrink to be accepted. Coming home to yourself means you stop asking every environment to approve of your becoming. You stop forcing yourself into conversations that make your spirit tired. You stop lowering your truth just to remain familiar to people who are not ready to see you clearly. Slowly, you begin choosing what feels honest over what feels safe. And this is the profound turning point. You are not becoming difficult, you are becoming real. You are not losing your world, you are leaving behind the world that only knew your wounded self. So you can finally enter a life that recognizes your wholeness. So if you no longer fit in your old world, do not rush to blame yourself. Do not call yourself broken because familiar places now feel strange. Do not call yourself ungrateful because old connections no longer satisfy your heart. Something within you has changed, and that change is asking for a life that no longer requires you to shrink, pretend, perform, or disappear. The old world may still be there, but you are not standing inside it with the same eyes. You have seen too much, felt too deeply, survived too quietly, and awakened too honestly to return as the person you once were. That is why certain conversations feel empty now. That is why certain people feel distant now. That is why old habits no longer comfort you the way they once did. Your soul is refusing to live on what only your fear used to accept. And yes, this stage can be lonely. It can feel like losing your place before finding your true path. But sometimes the life that no longer welcomes you is the very life that was keeping you asleep. Sometimes rejection is protection. Sometimes distance is preparation. Sometimes the silence around you is not emptiness, but space being cleared for something more honest. You are not here to fit into every room. You are not here to be understood by every person. You are not here to keep playing the version of yourself that made others comfortable while leaving you unseen. You are here to become whole. So let the old world misunderstand you if it must. Let the old patterns fall away if they cannot grow with you. Let the silence teach you what noise never could. Because the reason you no longer fit in your old world is not because you have lost yourself. It is because, perhaps for the first time, you are finally returning to yourself.